In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Cult Film Face-Off. My name is Chet Rivers. With me as usual is Nick Leonard.
Look at me, mate. I'm flying. I'm fucking flying.
This episode we're going to be discussing and eventually choosing between two half-remembered rom-coms from the 1980s. One Crazy Summer from 1986 and License to Drive from 1988. Incidentally, thank you very much to our listener Edward Fisher who suggested this pairing. If you have an idea for any pair of films that you think would be good for us to pit against each other, just give us a shout over Facebook or Twitter or via our website cultfilmfaceoff.com. But for this episode we will start with the first film out of the gate, One Crazy Summer from 1986, written and directed by Savage Steve Holland. Young animator and aspiring art school student Hoops McCann rallies his oddball friends in order to help a young pop singer save her family home from evil property developers. One Crazy Summer.
The movie started! The movie's done! Not really, I just want them to come running in from the lobby thinking that they missed something. Hi, I'm Ed Stewart, movie star, also known as Bobcat Goldthwait, and me and my friends John Cusack and Demi Moore
I hate boats. I'm not getting on any boat.
I beg to differ.
just had one crazy summer.
Your dad said you were collecting shells. Shells? 57 millimeter.
We did all the normal things people do. Hey, little boy, will you hold on to this for me? Made friends. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Saw the sights.
Please, you're an armistice. Anything but chili.
Killed our own food. Dazzled women.
Are you ready for me, Hoops?
We were party animals. Help me. Everyone loved us.
My car.
And we loved every minute. By the end of the summer, I felt I'd grown a lot personally. I felt a little bit better about who I was and where I was going. Okay, let's move it out. Here we go. Wave. It really was one crazy summer.
Okay, so One Crazy Summer. Had you heard of this before?
I had heard of it, but I'd never seen it. Had you heard of it or seen it?
I think it's one of those things that was discussed when, articles I'd read as a kid about sort of the 80s rom-coms, but I'd never seen it. I didn't know who was in it, and I didn't know that Savage Steve Holland directed it because I thought he only ever made Better Off Dead, but I was wrong. So what did you make of it in 2017?
It starts off, soundtrack keeps things rolling nicely, and I was quite the first 15, 20 minutes, I'm like, this is just kind of gag. Some tropes started popping up, like, the biker gangs chase, the slow-mo into the water. It's trying really hard to be really goofy. And then it kind of sets up that clash of, the preppy, affluent kind of gang versus the more cool, more music-orientated, creative bunch. And it kind of does that pair up. It runs out of gas pretty quickly, though. It was a bit of a slop to get through because I just didn't think there was actually many solid gags in it. Now, it didn't really make me laugh. What did you think?
Well, to be honest, it wrong-footed me straight away because I thought this was kind of in the vein of like John Hughes or something. But this is for really, really young kids. I think the humour is all like silly voices and dad jokes and sight gags that are straight like out of children's TV. And if there is a cinematic danger zone or a danger tone, it's zany. And this is the ultimate zany film. We've referenced him before, but if you're not familiar with the BBC sitcom character Colin Hunt from The Fast Show, this would be his favourite movie.
Was there any scenes that make... I had one laugh. Proper laugh. The one scene.
To be honest, I laughed out loud once.
Okay. Shall I tell you when I laughed?
Go on.
Well, okay, so it's a really inappropriate. A character just kicks a dog in the face.
Oh, I did. I smiled at that for sure. I like the dog dressed up as a doctor walking through the waiting room, just completely out of nowhere. I thought that was really amusing. To be honest, when it started, I really took against it because if the if you want to be told a story, this is the last film you should watch, because you could change almost every element of what's going on. You could change the costumes, you could change the location, you could change the character, and everything would still kind of work the same. There's no through line. It's not a very well told story at all. I mean, it's not a story. It's like it's a clothesline, and they put a load of very silly sketches on it, and it's trying to be every 80s film, like you said. There's the bad guy with the evil scheme, and he's got a buffoonish idiot of a child helping him. At one point, the hero's kind of hamstrung by his attraction to the villainous blonde girl, and it culminates in a race with the bad. I mean, this is just a sort of it's just a shitload of cliches.
It's a shitload of cliches. I mean, it has montage sequences. It has. I mean, the problem with this is that it's full of eccentric characters, but the lion's share of which are all really unlikable.
Really, yeah, that's true. That's really true. I mean, the funny thing about John Cusack is that I think he's really good when he's got a good script, and when he's got a bad script, I think I don't even want to look at him. I'm just like, you're terrible, mate. Yeah. He's so good in like anything that he did with Cameron Crowe. I think he's really good in Con Air, but when he's got a bad script, he's unlikable. Yeah. So I think that kind of works against it as well. Right. I mean, I thought the opening half hour was really tough to take because I just wanted to be told a story, and nobody's even attempting to do that. But there was a 5 to 10 minute stretch about 40 minutes in when I thought, this is really starting to win me over. It's the first beach sequence where there's that joke about the child being pulled off with a kite, and then there's the joke about the fat guy sitting on the chair
right below John Belushi, Bill Murray's brother's head.
Of course, that's Bill Murray's brother. Of course.
Yeah.
So I think the thing about this movie is that all of the jokes, you can see the punchline coming a mile away, and that.
I mean, for me, Savage Steve Holland, right? He's no stranger to Flopsville. He did One Crazy Summer and How I Got Into College, which both tanked massively at the box office. After that, he didn't do any films. He was just doing like Fox Kids, straight to TV fodder. And he came back in 2009 and did a film called Legally Blondes, which was a straight to DVD prequel. He's a director who's just suited for like preschool stuff, literally. I mean, it's really, really juvenile comedy. A couple of times it does work. Like, I mean, there's a sequence when they're at the baddie's house, and to demonstrate how evil he is. He's basically listening to the death throes of a lobster while having he's got a stethoscope connected just so it amplifies the death of the lobster. And then there's another scene with him later on where I think he's got a crossbow, and there's a spinning wheel with lobsters. He's just got he obviously hates lobsters. Which was okay, it made me raise a smile.
There were a couple. Early on again, there was a bit where I thought that's a really amusing idea. Where one of John Cusack's friends has an uncle who's just waiting to be the person to phone up that competition to be the 50th caller, and I thought that's a really funny comedic conceit. But the film doesn't really do anything.
It doesn't use it. It doesn't go back to him to kind of demonstrate, how he's just locked in there. It just the very end comes back to him, and obviously he gets cut off before he can.
Yeah, I mean, it's very silly. Yeah. I was surprised to see Jeremy Piven.
Young Jeremy Piven cropping up.
Yeah, I mean, he's just amazingly versatile. I don't think I've seen him play that part, the sidekick of the slimy jock. He's incredibly versatile. I did think this was hard to hate when there are gags of the caliber. I mean, I say caliber because that's a weird thing to say about something so fucking stupid. But when you see that dog walking through the doctor's surgery with the bloody light on its head and stuff, I mean, it's hard to hate. But I was kind of sort of thrown off course. Yeah. I mean, there's no story being told, and it's really, juvenile does not even cover it, and it's inconsistent, wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, I agree. I was just kind of like, for me, it was like the first half an hour, I was like, shit, I mean, this is really, it's just it's peppering gags, one after the other. I was thinking, shit, okay, this is fine. I'm quite, the energy was good, it was really, it was scored very well, appropriately. There was an energy to it. And then it just started running out of gas, and then occasionally you'd get a funny gag in there. But, I was was clock watching a few times. And I don't know, any time. I mean, they had the duo, what they called the brothers. One of them was Bobcat Goldthwait. They were just really hard to stomach any time they were on camera.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, to be honest. There's a lot of times where I just found myself thinking, I can't. I felt like turning it off, to be honest. But there was just these moments where I thought, do you know what? This is starting to win me over, and I'm starting to like this.
Because you're getting battered into submission.
Yeah, and you just have to have some. I mean, admiration's the wrong word, but it's so dedicated to just being as stupid as possible. But I mean, if you want to watch this movie and be told a story, I can't think of a worse film. I mean, it's so all over the place. It's one of the most slapdash Hollywood movies I think I've ever seen. It's so. I mean, it's interesting on that score, I suppose. It would never get made today.
It would never get made today. But also, there's no progression with any of the characters whatsoever.
No, it's nothing. I mean, that's what kind of annoyed me about it initially. There is no story being told. No. The most interesting thing I thought was Demi Moore's big coat. For the first half of the movie, she wears this big coat, and honestly, there was one shot where I thought she looks like one of the Goombas from the Super Mario Brothers movie. She has a tiny head and this massive body. Such a weird choice by the wardrobe department.
Have you seen Steve Holland's How I Got Into College? Have you seen any of his other movies? What's the other film you mentioned?
Better Off Dead, also with John Cusack, which is a sort of that's a real cult classic. I saw it when I was a kid, and I thought it was on par with the best of John Hughes. I saw it a couple of years ago, and oh boy, has that film not aged particularly well. It's very similar to this. It's, I remember it being more sophisticated, but it's just fucking stupid as shit. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard because on the surface this is something I should like. I think I was so aggrieved by the fact that there wasn't very much of a story being told. But yeah, How I Got Into College, I remember watching that back at the time and just being bored by it. Will you watch this again?
Never.
No, I don't think I could watch
Never. I can't recommend it to anybody either. I mean, unless somebody wants to go back and see what Demi Moore looked like before a lot of surgery.
Has she had a lot of surgery?
Well, I thought she's had a lot of surgery. How did she... Well, I think she's had some good surgery. She just looks like she hasn't aged.
That's what I mean. I was going to say, to see the difference, I'm like, there's no difference. She looks exactly the same these days. Which is I mean, I suppose that's a testament to good surgery, I suppose. But yeah... In this country, I don't think this has quite. I mean, there is a sort of cult cachet around this film in the States, but I always this never really got that sort of.
No, I don't think it ever picked up any momentum in the UK. It's certainly not one of those films like Porky's or The Wanderers or any of those films that were talked about so much at that time.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a bit of a roller coaster watching it because I went from legitimately hating it to kind of liking it, I suppose, but I couldn't recommend it, and I will never sit through it again.
No, exactly. I mean, rabid man-eating dolphin says it all.
Yeah, it does say it all. Okay, all right. Well, let's move on in that case to the second film, which is License to Drive from 1988, directed by Greg Beam and written by Neil Tolkien. After failing his driving test, Les Anderson steals his grandfather's prized 1972 Cadillac in order to impress a girl named Mercedes before the night comprehensively spins out of control. License to Drive.
Meet the Andersons. Yes. They're all awaiting a big event.
For your information, this is exactly what I ate when I was pregnant with all of you.
But Les is excited about an even bigger event.
Less than 48 hours away, the people at the Department of Motor Vehicles are going to be handing you your license.
His reputation is riding on it.
Do you think there's any chance we could get it Saturday night?
Not a chance in hell, Dean.
The date of a lifetime depends on it.
Mercedes Lane.
But it doesn't look good.
You failed.
He failed?
Honey, what is wrong with you?
Something.
Is this the end for Les Anderson?
I thought that we had a date tonight.
An innocent girl. A harmless drive. What could possibly go wrong?
See License to Drive.
Hold on. You got to show him the rest.
Oh, okay. Les knew that he could regret it.
This is it.
I'm up.
He knew he might be sorry.
Aren't you drinking rather heavily? This Mercedes has a dead battery.
Okay, do your breathing.
But he did it anyway.
There's nothing to worry about. like a sign. A sign from the big Mr. Goodwrench in the sky.
Will Les get the car home in one piece? Will his father leave Les in one piece?
You are damn lucky your mother didn't go into labor town. What?
License to Drive.
Does it have a happy ending?
Okay, License to Drive. I mean, I saw this movie trailed relentlessly when I was a kid. I should have seen it. I don't know why I haven't. What about you?
Say again. You'd never seen it?
No, it's one of those movies that was. The trailer was on the front of every video that I ever rented, and it was always there. And it's the kind of movie I should have rented, but I didn't because I was watching, Schwarzenegger stuff, and so I never saw it. But obviously you had.
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I remember quite vividly seeing it as well because it seemed to be trailed on everything. It was trailed on everything. So
everything. Yeah,
I remember it coming. I remember there being the massive poster. This is another George Dawes' big box video shop special from Shirley, and I remember quite vividly getting it and watching it for the first time. And it was one of those movies where I think when I watched it the first time, watched it all the way through. Consequently, every time I watched it after that, I think I'd only watched. I remember the second half being disappointing, and literally the exact same thing happened watching it some 25 plus years later, is that it opens really strong and then just kind of goes into chase scenes and pretty basic stunt work in the second half. It opens with a brilliant scene on a bus and a really good car chase, and it really reminded me of a film that came out a couple of years before, actually, of Freddy's Revenge.
I thought, are they trying to? Is this a takeoff on the beginning of Friday?
I think it's a strong head nod. It was very evocative of that. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think of it? Coming to it for the first time at an age well over what the target audience was.
Yeah, I mean, it started and I thought, because the first thing, like you said, is on the bus, but it's school children depicted as prisoners on a bus, and I thought, wow, this is the kind of thing that you would see in One Crazy Summer. And then there's one of the next scenes, Carol Kane, who's Corey Haim's mother, is eating a massive plate of mashed potato. But then you find out that it's because she's pregnant and it's a craving. And okay, they would never have bothered to have a reason for a joke being in the last film. So immediately I thought, okay, this is interesting. And in terms of a story being told, I kind of felt like, thank God, I'm actually watching a story unfold and there's characters in it. And immediately I liked this so much more than One Crazy Summer, almost instantaneously. As simple as it is, it's a story being told. And I think also another thing that works about it in the first half is the acting's, everyone's really good. In comparison, John Cusack, I think, looks lost and kind of angsty, and I didn't warm to him at all. I think the two, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, were likeable. And there's the one scene that really struck me is the first driving lesson, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, the guy playing the driving instructor is way too good to be in this film. And it actually turns out it's James Avery, who's Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, I mean, Les the DMV examiner. I mean, thinking of the first scene I thought about when this came up, we were going to be doing this, was the scenes that stuck in my head were the driving scene with the coffee, because when you're a kid and you get your driving test, you always think, is my examiner going to put a fucking mug of coffee, a styrofoam cup of coffee, and if you're going to spill it, then you failed the test. That was etched into my head. And also the fact is that the mother had the father kept having to get up, thinking he was just automatically going to take her to hospital.
That's right. Yeah,
they're the two gags that I remembered. The thing about this film is that it has characters, Haim and Fieldman are playing two. Fieldman being the really, the cool as hell part of the duo. Corey Haim being the kind, just completely obsessed that he has to get this driving license under his belt. But Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Anderson, Carol Kane and Richard Mesa, are brilliant. Just great characters. Really playing really well. Do you recognise? I mean, I recognise. I didn't when I was a kid, but I recognise them now. I was like, oh yeah, the dad is Clark in The Thing, and the mum, Carol Kane, she was the fairy. I'm pretty sure, I don't check, but I think 100%, well, 99%, that she's the fairy from Scrooged. And
yes, she is. Yeah, that's right.
And Valerie from The Princess's Bride.
That's right as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they're all. I mean, the adults are all daft, but they're totally believable and quite likable as well. It's not. One Crazy Summer has that thing where all adults are kind of fucking stupid and out of touch, and they don't know what's going on, and all kids, the world's just a playground.
No, exactly. And there's a great scene. There's a great scene when, obviously, the dad is completely winding him up and then just pulls the rug from under him at the last minute. It's a brilliant scene.
Of all the films that it can ever be said about, this is a film of two halves, because the second film is the second half of the film is about them trying and failing not to destroy
really dull.
the car.
It goes on and on and on. And I remember, 8 or 9 years of age, I remember thinking, it was never a film that I went back to. Or if I went back to it, I only see the beginning, the first half of it, because the second half is just. It's really derivative and
it's boring.
It's dull. It's such
really
a shame because it taps into that whole kind of the pressure you have as someone who's young, who's being, you've got to be, especially it resonates with myself, because when you're somebody who doesn't live in a town at that age before you're driving, you are constantly having to rely on your mum and dad to ferry you everywhere. And it is an embarrassing thing, getting dropped off at parties. You're like, getting that driving licence is like your ticket to, freedom. So that playing on that is brilliant. I just love the fact that they had, the theory test in that kind of concrete bunker with those, outdated 80s computers, aggressively honking at you when you've got the answers wrong, and great cartoony kind of adult characters in there, like the woman who's in charge of the driving test centre. Good character acting.
Yeah, it's so weird how bizarrely it goes off the rails, and it's there's a couple of moments where I was like, wow, God, the 80s seems like an ancient time ago. But there's that bit where they've got Heather Graham in the back, and Corey Feldman just lifts her clothes up and starts taking pictures of her body, and I was like, whoa, 80s hijinks, there's nothing wrong with this. And then when they go to that pseudo 50s diner, and there's these three girls just sat there like hookers or something, just waiting to be picked out. I was like, well, this is a really retrograde film.
And just having you'd never get away with the old guy drinking, the guy who just basically is just drinking and driving. I mean, he's like lining up shots and opening up cans of beer.
But it's all a laugh, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all drink driving. It's just a bit of harmless fun. It's really, the second half is just so dull and formulaic, and it's just like, I get it. The grandfather's car is slowly getting completely destroyed. The tagline's good. Some guys get all the breaks.
I saw that earlier today when I was just looking at the IMDb page. I honestly reckon that this film could have come. They said, I've got the tagline. Some guys get all the breaks. The whole film could have been retroactively written from that point, I think. But that's I don't want to dismiss how genuinely pretty good the first half is. But the second half is particularly weird in the last 10 minutes. The race to wrap it up is so odd. It's like they're sprinting to wrap it up. And at the end, I did think, hey, this is quite different in that the Corey Haim character is going to get his comeuppance. He's going to get what's coming to him because he trashed his granddad's car. But he doesn't, because apparently he learned to be a stunt driver at some point, and he speeds to the hospital. I mean, it's fucking stupid. And then the car gets totaled by builders working outside, and you'd think that's a happy ending. The builders are going to pay for that. They're going to have to buy us a brand new car. But apparently that's not how it works. And then the granddad brings another car that's been crushed, and I don't know. I mean, it's
just daft 80s-ness, isn't it? I mean,
I reckon it got greenlit before they'd finished the script. It's so because the second half is just all over the fucking shop, and it's not. It is fucking boring, and it's a shame because the first half is really quite solid for like a teenage sort of comedy.
Yeah, you ain't wrong. It creamed it at the box office, £8 million budget, and it made 22 million in the US.
That's pretty good. I thought it was well weird how I always forget in America you can say fuck in a PG. There's that bit where I think somebody said, "Oh, don't fuck with the DMV," and I just thought, "Wow, it's so odd that a shit is fine, I reckon, but a sexual swear word at a PG always seems completely out of place." What?
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's just a weird, it's just a cultural difference, really.
And the music was good as well. I had some good driving tracks, Drive My Car, Lennon McCartney. They had Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car, Billy Ocean. I mean, the soundtrack was solid 80s bangers end to end.
But if you have to pick one, where are we going to go? I was genuine. I thought this was going to be a whitewash because I was so happy with License to Drive in the opening half, and I so hated so much of One Crazy Summer. One Crazy Summer has gotten better in my memory, and I really thought that the second half of License to Drive was so shit that I don't really know where I'm going. Do you have a more definitive?
Oh, I've got a more definitive. Yeah, I mean, I've got way more, and I've obviously got the nostalgia element in this because I saw it as a kid. I've got a nostalgia. I've got a soft spot for seeing Corey Haim and Corey Feldman on the screen. I was prepared for how derivative that second half was going. So I remember it completely tailing off. In my head, I thought it tailed off way later than it did. I didn't think it was literally you've got half an hour, 35 minutes of real good stuff. And then it's two halves. I can't. There's no way I couldn't sit through One Crazy Summer again. I could sit through License to Drive because that first half has got enough in it to merit that. Whereas One Crazy Summer, I couldn't. I was clock watching One Crazy Summer after the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. Just because I know how important a story is to me. Just having watched that
and
film,
characterization. There is no. There's not even you can't say Demi Moore character's this, Cusack's character's this. There is no characters. They were just there superfluous. The characters are superfluous. They're just there to hang shit gags on.
Yeah, I mean that's all it is, and that if telling a story was the first thing that you had to do with the movie, Savage Steve Holland would never have worked again because it is I can't remember the last time a film failed this catastrophically to just tell a story, even a simple story.
Yeah, that's why he's not gone near films, and he's been resided to doing like Fox Kids,
I bet Fox. When you said Fox Kids, I was like, that is his natural home. Yeah, that's where the guy belongs, quite clearly. Yeah. I didn't hate. I mean, there was the first half an hour I was like, I can't watch any more of this, but I think it has to be License to Drive. The second half is fucking sleazy as well. I was really just like, whoa, 80s, what the fuck were we like? But yeah, so I think License to Drive has to pip it.
It has. It's got the better cast. It's got a story. It's actually got characters. Yeah, and I just love the fact that there isn't really a film that plays on the pressures of getting your license. There's great scenes when it's like it's the stuff of nightmares is when you're stuck behind and someone's giving you loads of shit and you're a learner driver. It just kind of the way it cuts into that, to the rear view mirror, it was showing decent craft to kind of get that across. And there is some really kind of the sister, when she's getting into her driver testing car, and it's like, oh, who's she got? Well, a predatory Pat Sharp. And also and Uncle Phil, James Earl Jones. No, that's not the right guy.
James Avery. His name. He's so good in that movie. When I was watching, I didn't realise it was him, and I thought, wow, he's way too good to be in this film. But then, to be honest, I felt like Carol Kane and what's his name, Richard
Masser.
Yeah, they were so. I mean, everyone in it's really good, and that was really nice to see because One Crazy Summer was just a bunch of comedians, a couple of actors who didn't look particularly happy to be there, and that's not satisfying to watch. So, I think it's almost a slam dunk for License to Drive, as dodgy as it is.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I can't argue against it not getting the win here.
Okay, well, right, well, that's it. License to Drive is the winner. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest an episode perhaps, or leave us a review on iTunes, that'd be great. But catch us on Twitter, Facebook, or cultfilmfaceoff.com. And yeah, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode, and we'll see you then.
Big up your chest.
Bye-bye.
Cult Film Face-Off.
Coming up next, License to Drive, a comedy about that age-old problem, that 16-year-old problem, getting a license to drive a car.
Buckle up, son. It's the real world out here.
A funny film about a teenager's problems after he fails his driver's license test but still wants to drive. I don't know that any such film would top my want-to-see list, but regardless, License to Drive is not that film. It is a dim-witted, predictable movie, the stuff we associate with bad TV sitcom material. Corey Haim, the likable star of Lucas, adds nothing to his reputation here as he loses control of his grandfather's car.
Oh, we're gonna die! Oh, man, I told you this was gonna happen!
That scene isn't the least bit funny, either as a stunt or when you consider the many tragedies involving teen driving. And you can also see that in this scene where Corey Haim is taken for a ride.
There you go! Front door service.
There's also a weak romance in the movie with him trying to land the most beautiful girl in the world, but mostly what we have here are runaway car jokes that are neither exciting nor funny. We also have one of the dullest collection of teenagers ever filmed, and that's quite an accomplishment. for License to Drive.
I don't recommend the movie either, but I sure did like it a lot more than you did, especially the first hour. Now, I think what you're reacting to probably is the last half of the movie, which is all of the chase stuff, all of the stunts, all of the special effects, all of the weird driving and the things they can do with cars.
Who cares?
Who cares? In fact, I would almost make it as a rule that it is no longer possible for anything involving fast-moving cars to be funny. That's just kind of like a basic principle.
I have seen a movie, and I won't say what it is, but I have seen a movie in which they do a joke about fast-moving cars that's very good. In fact, I will tell you what the name of the movie is.
It's the
Dirty Harry movie.
The new Dirty Harry movie. Yes, I know that. But that is not a real car. So I've still got you. So I would make that as a basic rule. But apart from that, the first part of this movie, you remember we're reviewing License to Drive.
Yeah, right? I want to forget that.
I thought there were a lot of big laughs in it, especially in the scene where a driving license examiner, played by a man named James Avery, is absolutely hilarious. He gets this totally frightened kid in the car, and he takes this brimful cup of coffee and puts it up on the dashboard, and he says, I don't like to get that coffee spilled on my pants, he tells the kid, you know, and here the kid is going over bumps and so forth, and the coffee's going. Now, that was a hilarious scene. And there were some other scenes in the first part of the movie that were very funny. Then I agree with you, it went to pop.
Well, I'm glad you like the cup of coffee. Next time you look at that film, and there will never be another next time because you really didn't like the movie.
I'm not giving it thumbs up. I didn't say it.
There's a continuity error in the amount of coffee in the guy's cup. You'll see that there's more coffee after he's drunk some a little later on, or some that's spilled out. So even the scene that you like,
and that spoiled the joke for you.
Roger, nothing would have made this movie work for me at that point. I think the whole movie stunk.
You're too harsh, Gene.